Good morning, I'm Gretchen Hall. We're coming to you live this Monday, 22nd day of September, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. You got first on the agenda, Malacanang has suspended work in government offices and classes at all levels in 30 areas today, that's September 22, in anticipation of heavy rains from Super Typhoon Nando as well as the southwest monsoon. The suspension covers Metro Manila along with the provinces of Abra, Antique, Apayao, Bataan, Batanes, Batangas, Benguet, and Bulacan. It also applies to Cagayan, Cavite, Ifugao, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, Isabela, Kalinga, La Union, Laguna, and Mountain Province. Also covered are Nueva Ecija, Nueva Vizcaya, Occidental Mindoro, Oriental Mindoro, Pampanga, Pangasinan, Palawan, Romblon, Rizal, Tarlac, and Zambales. Super Typhoon Nando maintains its strength as it moves closer to Babuyan Islands. Its center was last spotted some 245 kilometers east of Calayan, Cagayan. Nando packs maximum winds of 205 kilometers per hour and gustiness of up to 250 kph. The super typhoon may pass close or may make landfall over Babuyan Islands between noon and early afternoon today and then exit the Philippine Area of Responsibility by tomorrow morning. With that, tropical cyclone wind signal number 5 is up over the northern portion of Babuyan Islands. Signal number 4 has been hoisted for the southeastern portion of Batanes, the rest of Babuyan Islands, and northeastern portion of mainland Cagayan. Meanwhile, signal number 3 is in place over the rest of Batanes as well as for the northern and central portions of mainland Cagayan, Apayao, and Ilocos Norte. The rest of Cagayan, Apayao, and Ilocos Norte, portions of Benguet, Nueva Vizcaya, Ilocos Norte, La Union, and the provinces of Isabela, Abra, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Ifugao, and Ilocos Sur are now under signal number 2. Over 10 areas now flashed on your screen have been placed under signal number 1. Let's move on over to another storm. Tensions flared in Mendiola, Manila, where some protesters against corruption hurled objects at police barricades. Along Recto, troublemakers vandalized and looted a hotel, even stealing its vault. Here is the report.
Thousands gathered along Mendiola in Manila yesterday to protest corruption in government. From colorful placards to symbolic costumes, demonstrators said their message was clear: end corruption and hold those responsible accountable.
Tama na. Sobra na ito. Dapat nang matapos ang korupsyon dito sa ating bansa. Alam na ng taong bayan ang dahilan at pinagmumula ng korupsyon. At naniniwala ang taong bayan na kailangang ipakulong ang lahat ng mga sangkot sa korupsyon. Mga Duterte, mga Marcos, mga DPWH, mga kontraktor, dapat lahat sila ay makulong.
Sino susuot ng ganitong outfit at may hard hat? Samantalang nasa loob yung ating kinakain ng buhaya. Unti-unting lumilinaw, lumalabas. Yung mga politiko talaga eh. Hindi magsusimula yung korupsyon kung walang masamang balak ang politiko.
But the peaceful demonstration turned tense when protesters marched toward the Peace Arc for their closing program. Water cannons were fired as protesters hurled rocks, bottles, wood, barricade, and even foul-smelling liquid mixed with paint at police. The clash dragged on for hours. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla arrived on the scene, witnessing the confrontation firsthand.
Sa mga sa buong bayan, sana intindihin nyo kami. Kailangan namin protektahan ang bansa natin na hindi nananaig ng violence. Ang peaceful protest ay buwapayan kami. Lahat ng hindi kami namimigil. Pero kung nagbabatuhan ng polotog at masasaktan yung mga polis, sila directly under me. I am responsible for them.
That same night, a group vandalized and looted a hotel along Recto Avenue, breaking its glass windows and stealing the hotel's vault. A security guard was injured in the incident. The situation escalated further with Molotov explosions, smoke, and injuries from the stone throwing. By 9 p.m., police had sealed off Mendiola and dispersed the protesters, especially minors. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno inspected the area after the violence.
They are welcome to Manila and express their complaints and rights, especially in our public plaza. But they don't have the right to destroy properties, private and public. Kala ko ba gusto nyo ng gobyernong matino? Ba't yung sinira yung property ng gobyerno?
According to police data, more than 61,000 protesters gathered in total on Sunday. Of this number, over 30,000 were in Manila, while around 27,000 came from various provinces. Nearly 50 individuals were arrested for disruptive acts such as stone throwing, arson, and assaulting police officers. Among those apprehended, 13 were minors. Malacanang Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro condemned the violence, calling some of the protesters tulisan or bandits.
Mukhang gusto nilang pabaksakin ng gobyerno. At sino ba yung sanay sa mga ganitong klaseng mga pang-harassment at mga ganitong klaseng mapanira? Diba? So, sino ba ang gusto nilang iangat dito? At sinong gusto nilang pabagsakin? So dito, this is definitely, they are definitely doing a crime.
Group staged a mass protest yesterday to denounce corruption in government. And to take us through the events, we are now joined in the studio by our mobile journalist Mary Reyes, who was at the Luneta Park in Mendiola as well. Magandang umaga sa'yo. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Grace.
Unang-una, alam naman natin, yesterday we had relatively peaceful demonstrations in EDSA and Luneta.
Yes.
But Mendiola was where most of the violence happened.
Yes.
Ano yung mga na-witness mo? Paano ba nagsimula yung gulo?
Actually, to compare yung peacefulness from Luneta, malayo yung difference niya. Everything took place parang starting sa Ayala Bridge. Meron doong container van or container truck. Doon nag-start na meron nagbabatuhan na raw ng bato. Bottles na may parang mabahong likido na may pintura. Binabato to sa mga pulis. And then after a few minutes, nakita namin na pinaliaban nila yung container truck and may motor din silang pinasindihan doon. Parang kasabay din yan, pumupunta rin yung mga protesters from Luneta Park, papunta na rin sana ng Mendiola for the closure of the program. And ang nasabi rin sa atin dito ni Representative Teddy Casino, saglit lang daw talaga yon kasi they're planning to go to EDSA Shrine next. Or for the others naman, bahala na kung magde-disperse na sila. Yun nga lang, nung nandun na sila sa Mendiola, nakita namin, may nagtatakbuhan na agad sila pabalik. Sabi namin, bakit? Teka lang, bakit po kayo nagbabalikan? Binubuambahan na po kasi ng tubig, yung mga nagpo-protesta, ganyan. So, karamihan sa kanila dismayado. Pero for the others, ang sinasabi, nagbabato na po yung iba ng bato, ng bote, ng babasagin
Kumbaga,
sa
hindi na
pulis.
sila pinapapunta sa may Mendiola
Hindi na.
area.
Nagmeron ng order for dispersal. Technically, maayos daw talaga. Saglit lang sila sa Mendiola, alis na sila. Ganun lang talaga. Hindi sila magtatagal doon. And then, nung numinipis na yung mga tao, nagulat din kami noon. May mga grupo naman ng mga kabataan. Most of them wearing black t-shirts, nakamaskara yung iba. And doon na mas nag-escalate talaga.
Ito ba yung nagpasunog nung container van?
More
mga
likely,
na-item?
kasi yung iba sa kanila sumunod, papunta. Ang gusto kasi nila, base sa mga nakausap namin doon, gusto nilang ma-reach ang Malacanang. So, nag-start din sila doon sa Ayala Bridge kasi nakahalang yung container. And then, diretso sila, Mendiola, makalagpas daw sana para ma-reach nila ang Malacanang. And yung nasabi sa atin, yung iba, nag-abang na sila along Mendiola, along Recto Avenue.
Okay.
So, medyo nagkagulo-gulo na talaga. Nag-start na siya around 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon. Tuloy-tuloy na yun.
Pero
Yun siya.
itong mga protester na ito, hapon lang sila dumating? Wala sila nung umaga?
Yung mga nanggulo,
Oo.
dalawa ang narrative na nakuha natin. Yung ilan, kasama raw sila from the Luneta Rally, Baha sa Luneta. For the others, nag-abang na sila sa Ayala Bridge or sa Mendiola. So, dalawa yung narrative na nakuha
Kumbaga, parang may
natin doon.
resback.
Merong mga nag-aabang na rin daw talaga. And nung tanong natin, saan kayo kasama? Sino po bang koalisyon ninyo? May partido ba tayo? Wala. Basta kami lang dito. Gusto lang namin talagang magpahayag daw ng mensahe nila.
Anong mensahe nila? Anong sinisigaw nila?
Actually, medyo obscene yung mga language na narinig natin most of the time. Yung calling out nila compared sa ibang mga rally, medyo obscene na yung language na ginagamit nila. Meron na silang mga ginagawa na gestures, which is bad.
But was it clear what they were fighting for?
They were naming political figures na gusto nilang makulong, gusto nilang masangkot ng Pangulo. Hati rin yan ng Pangulo ngayon, ng dating Pangulo, past administrations, mga senador na nasasangkot, mga kongresista. And DPWH officials. Yan yung mga naririnig natin. Even yung mga poste sa kahabaan ng Recto Avenue, nagsispray paint na sila doon. Then yung mga placards din nila, inaano din nila, wini-wave nila yun.
Itong paglusob sa hotel, saan nangyari? Diyan din ba sa area na yan?
Sa Recto Avenue na yon, yun yung paggabi na. Kasi ang sabi, nagkakarambola ang mga rallyista and yung mga pulis. Pero umabot siya sa point na pinasok nila yung hotel na yon. Yun nga lang, ransacked siya. So nakuha yung isang vault, yung mga yung mga pera daw, mga wallet, mga ID doon sa lobby,
Paano
sa
naman
opisina
napunta
nakuha.
dyan sa hotel na yan?
Sabi kasi sa mga nakausap natin doon, meron supposedly kukuyugin na pulis or rallyista. Pumunta raw doon sa hotel, sinundan, dinumog nila.
Okay.
Yun nga lang, binasag yung salamin, yung pinto ng hotel.
At may dala silang Molotov? Itong mga...
May Molotov
Sino may hawak
cocktails sila.
Ng Molotov?
Yung mula doon sa mga kabataan, sila yung mga nagbabato ng Molotov cocktails.
Yung mga nakaitim.
Yung mga nakaitim. And bukod doon, lahat ng kung ano mang makita nila, bato, tiles, bote, bubog, binabato nila yun every few minutes.
Binabato
talaga.
nila kanino?
Papunta sa pulis.
Oh, okay.
Papunta sa pulis. Yun nga lang, may mga civilian din kasi na nasa side kung nasaan yung pulis. So syempre, sumisigaw yung iba, tama na, may civilian dito, tama na. Pero parang hindi siya tumalab kasi inabot siya 5 hours or more na nandun sa Recto Avenue talaga.
Did the police extend maximum tolerance for the rallies here? Ano nakita mo? Kasi nandun si DILG Secretary Boy
Yes.
Remulla. And nandun din si Mayor Isko.
Nung first few hours, parang naka-human barricade lang sila, hawak nila yung riot shields nila, parang naglalakad lang sila. Pero nung umabot na kasi talaga sa point na binabasag na nila, even yung holders yung poste ng mga advertisement, as in basag talaga siya. Doon namin nakita na yung SWAT team, naglakad na. Nung una kasi parang nakaabang pa sila sa may dulo, papuntang Isitan Recto. Pero nung as in nagkakarambola na, tsaka na sila na umabante papunta sa mga to. Medyo nagkaroon pa nga
Anong
ng
ginawa
palitan
nila doon sa mga nakaitim? Hinuli ba nila? Na-identify ba sila kung sino sila? Kasi nakamaskara sila.
Yes. Actually, ang CICC ngayon, they're backtracking for face recognitions. So, babase daw sila sa mga video footages. And magre-request din sila sa ilang local media para raw ma-check yung mga muka nitong supposed
Pero meron silang mga
nagsangkot.
nahuli?
Meron.
Oo.
Throughout the night, ang dami nilang hinuli. Nung una kasi parang sinasabi, okay na, tama na. Parang tama na muna, nakakasira na kayo ng property, nakakagulo na kayo dito. Yung sunog pa nga sa tapat ng hotel, akala namin lalaki pa kasi pinaliliyab talaga nila. And, pero nung lumipas yung oras, hindi talaga nahinto. So umabot na sa point na humuli na talaga sila nitong mga nakaitim.
Okay, marami kasi kumakalat na balita sa social media na meron daw mga missing, meron din daw namatay. How do we clarify that? Meron ba mga ganong kaganapan?
Yung doon sa missing, kasi marami silang hinuli. So, throughout the night, yun, di natin masasabi kung alam ba ng pamilya nila na sumali sila doon sa demonstrasyon na yon or hindi. Pero pagdating doon kasi sa sinasabing may namatay, sa nakita natin, meron kasing isang natamaan ng bato.
Okay.
So, nabagok siya, natumba siya. And it took some time para dalhin siya via stretcher, alisin. Syempre, yung ibang tao doon, nung nakita nila, ang sinabi nila, uy, patay na yan, wala na yan. Pero sa nakita namin, and doon sa first aid na nag-response, hindi naman siya
Mukhang wala namang
technically
katotohanan na may
oo.
casualty.
Wala. Sa nakita natin, wala talaga.
Injuries malamang meron, pero yung casualty.
Marami-rami. Nag-start din siya sa tear gassing kasi nagbato din ng tear gas ang pulis nung simula talaga nung riot nila sa Mendiola. And karamihan sa nakita natin mga hinimatay. Yung iba doon ang ginagawa, binubuhusan ng tubig, naghihilamos sila para raw matanggal yung usok. Bukod doon, mga pasa-pasa dahil nga
How about
nagbabatukan.
on the side of the police? Did you see injured police?
Yes, merong mga nabugbog. Nagbubugbugan sila. Nagkukuyugan sila, police and rioters. Pero sa records ng NCRPO, around 40 policemen ang bilang talaga
There
na
are
injured.
concerns over police brutality. Did you see anything unreasonable on the side of local enforcement?
So far, kasi nung nagkaroon na ng hulihan, sumisigaw yung mga rioters na wala akong ginagawang mali, wala akong ginagawang masama. So, possible na for the others, yung mga nakakanood, they might see it as parang hindi na na-exert yung maximum tolerance. Pero on the side of the police, sa simula, wala tayong nakita talaga na aggression from them eh. Kasi nga nakabantay lang sila. Nung nagbabatuhan na talaga, tuloy-tuloy na, babasagin na talaga, marami nang pwedeng matamaan nito, doon na talaga sila gumalaw. Pero pagdating sa yung sinasabi nilang kung nalagpasan nila or hindi nila natuloy maximum tolerance, parang wala na, hindi ko siya nakita kahapon na umabot sa ganung punto. Pero feel ko baka sobrang konting-konti na
And
lang.
how
yung
did it end?
pasensya.
I mean, paano na-disperse yung crowd na yan?
It ended with fireworks. Kasi nung mga 9 magte-10, technically parang natahimik na yung mga tao. Nakaupo na sila sa gilid, yung mga rioters, yung mga nanonood. Tapos may mga nagpa-fireworks dun sa may likod, sa may Mendiola. So lahat ng mga rioters parang, hey, pumapalakpak sila ngayon, nagbibideo sila. Kaya medyo ang laki nung shift ng emotion. Na tense sila nung una,
Pero hindi
galit
ito yung
sila.
mga violente? O sila pa rin?
Halo-halo.
Okay.
So yung iba parang nakalma, napahinga talaga sila. Pero for the others, parang siguro nag-disperse
Mary,
talaga.
nakita mo ba yung flag? Yung parang one-piece flag.
Yes.
And do you feel that this is a different group altogether from the Tindig Pilipinas, the organizers?
Yung one-piece flag, meron din yan during the Luneta Rally. So hanggang Mendiola, merong one-piece flag. And sa pagtingin din natin, itong one-piece flag, dumayo rin papuntang EDSA Shrine and the People Power Monument. So, pero bukod doon, siguro ang isa sa nakita kong watawat na kailangang i-note was kagabi, nung nagpapaalab sila ng apoy, may dalawang watawat na baliktad ang kulay. Akala ko ito was pure coincidence, baka nagkamali lang ng hawak. Pero baliktad talaga ang color. Red sa taas, blue sa baba. Dalawang watawat.
Palagay mo ba may ibang kumukumpas dito sa grupong ito?
Well, it's a question we're yet to answer kasi even the police hindi pa nila ma-identify kung kanino nga ba affiliated itong mga kabataan. And even sila Representative Casino, even si Sir Mangalito na kausap natin, hindi pa din nila talaga ma-identify kung sino mga to. Pero yun nga, even si Representative Renato Reyes, injured siya, marami-rami ang nadamay din.
Bilang
talaga.
huling katanungan ko, kayo ba, media, kayo ba ikinuyog din? Alam naman natin, pag nakakita tayo ng mga big crowds and rallies,
Yes.
madalas ikaw naging subject ka na nun.
Yes.
How was your experience?
Well, meron tayong fellow reporter na natamaan ng bato while he was doing his live report. Tayo, buti na lang, hindi naman nabubog, nabatuhan tayo ng babasagin. Pero I think it's precisely because nandun kami sa side kung saan pinakamalapit ang pulis. So the direction of yung mga binabato nila, pwedeng sa amin din mapunta
Ano nangyari
talaga.
kay Gary? Was there hate directed at him?
Actually,
For being part of the media?
He was just going to report during that time. He was standing near Mendiola Arc, pero doon siya parang ginalaw. So bumaba muna itong si Kuya Gary and hindi natuloy, pero kinakantsawan talaga siya. And if not for the police barrier sa harap niya, parang siguro nilapitan na siya or sinunggapan na siya ng mga to. Pero hinarangan naman ng pulis siya.
Well, good to see you that you're safe.
Yes, thank you.
Despite everything that happened over at Mendiola yesterday, we do know that is the area that has been marred by more violent protests. But you're right. Alamin pa natin yung mga sagot sa ating katanungan. But in the meantime, maraming salamat. Thank you for joining us and for giving us the breakdown of what happened yesterday over from Luneta to Mendiola. We have a mobile journalist, Mary Reyes, our reporter present at the rallies protests yesterday. In the meantime, we still have a guest to talk to. We will be speaking with Tindig Pilipinas convener Kiko Aquino D, as well as political analyst Alan Herman. More on that when Morning Matters returns. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Now, more on the rally. We have on the show with us Tindig Pilipinas co-convener Akiko Aquino D. He will speak about the developments that happened yesterday and the message of the protest. Magandang umaga sa iyo. Welcome back to Morning Matters.
Ay, magandang umaga, Gretchen. Magandang umaga sa lahat ng mga nanonood po ngayon.
Kiko, unang-una, masaya ba ang Tindig Pilipinas sa turnout yesterday of the rallies? And kamusta naman ang naging experience niyo on your end?
Well, yeah, definitely po. Blown away by the turnout yesterday. I've heard different counts po dun sa bilang ng mga dumalo. I've heard low of 50,000, high of 100,000. Pero this week pa lang po yung assessment namin. And then yun, sunburn notwithstanding, I think and maybe one or two isolated incidents. I think by and large, it was a peaceful protest. Na yun yung that was one of the main priorities that we wanted to make. Na we wanted to express our anger over what was going on, what's been going on as far as corruption is concerned. But we are also committed to doing it peacefully and doing it within the framework of the 1987 Constitution. So I think in terms of those goals, we were quite successful.
Okay, so just to be clear about the scope of Tindig Pilipinas, kayo yung nag-organize ng rally dito sa Luneta at saka sa EDSA, tama ba?
Just
how
to be
about,
clear po, no? So we organized we were part of the organizers of the Trillion Peso March. The lead organizer po was the Church Leaders Council for National Transformation, led by Bishop Colin Bagaforo. We were in solidarity with the Luneta March. So some of the organizers from Luneta joined us in a press conference last Monday, to give details on both events. But I did not, or my organization did not have a direct hand in organizing yung sa Luneta.
And what did you hope to achieve with the protests over in EDSA? And what was the common message? Kasi yun nga yung parang I mean, is this an anti-corruption rally? Usually kasi when people go out to the streets, there's a clear goal of fighting the incumbents and asking people in power to step down. But in this case, what is the primary goal of these rallies, the primary message?
So I think we really want clear accountability for all of these issues of corruption. No? So as far as the Independent Commission on Infrastructure is concerned, we are less and less enthusiastic about it in its current form because it lacks certain powers to compel people to cooperate. And the composition is very much executive dominated. No? So we'd want to support the legislation in both houses of Congress that creates an independent a permanent independent commission that has subpoena and contempt powers that is where civil society can have some participation in the selection of its composition and its proceedings, and that is separate entirely from the executive and legislative once it has been established. No? So I think we're calling for that. We're calling also for a return to the old system where SALNs were freely available and we can access them easily, as opposed to the current situation where the previous ombudsman sort of stonewalled access to SALNs. And I think the really important one is we want to see legal and political accountability. Like, legal accountability means cases being filed, strong cases being filed, names being named. And political accountability means once those names are named, even if the cases are proceeding, I think the mere implication in corruption is enough for voters to say that we shouldn't vote for these people when they return to us to seek our mandate in 2028 or future elections. No? So we're calling for accountability within the framework of the 1987 Constitution.
It's good to see that many people came out to the streets rallying in their own way. Meron mga celebrities that went to EDSA, meron din pumunta sa Luneta, meron din those who did an anti-corruption run, meron din yung mga nag-cycling. I mean, people from different sectors finding their own way, creative way to join the battle cry against corruption. But also there are those who say that each group just accuse their own political enemies of corruption while defending the ones they support. In other words, many of these groups use the rallying cry against their own enemies. If true, how effective do you think would the rallies have been?
Well, at least speaking for the trillion peso march, no, the church made it very clear that the color of the day would be white kasi walang kulay yung katiwalian. There were politicians who attended, but the call of the church was no one will speak on stage because we want to call everyone out. No? So definitely, I think the Marcos administration is first there because they're the incumbent administration. They're the ones in charge while all of this corruption was happening. I think it emerged quite clearly that a lot of the issues on flood control began during the Duterte administration, so they might have caught a lot of fire as well. But if people wanted to call out, it's not something that I would want to do personally. But if people wanted to call out like the Aquino administration or the Arroyo administration, they were free to do so. No, what we were discouraging, or what we were discouraging was voicing anything in support of one political agenda or another. No, so even though, for example, I supported the impeachment towards VP Sara Duterte, I set that to one side for today because the focus had to be calling out corruption in all forms, no, not focusing on one particular entity or another.
But also, if we try to look at it as, I mean, to have a, I mean, if it's too broad, also, you risk not hitting a particular objective, right? So there's quite confusion over what the end goal is of these rallies. If you talk about accountability and if you talk about wanting cases filed, haven't we seen that also back in 2012 when people came out to rally against the pork barrel, which was eventually abolished, but it became something else. It turned into another form. Marami ng insertions ngayon that are billions more than the millions in pork barrel funds. So, I mean, I help me see a tunnel through this. And ano ba yung parang maaaring puntahan nung protest?
So I think 2 points po, no? So first, I think it's a very fair point when you say that when your calls are broad, then it becomes hard to focus down. But I think also it's important to remember that a lot of different groups came together to put the trillion peso march, right? And so coming up with a consensus position requires that kind of dynamic. So while yes, I acknowledge that the broad nature can be counterproductive in some areas in terms of bringing a lot of groups together. I think there's a benefit to be had there as well. But in terms of like what the end game we'd want to see, going back to the 2012 or 2013 million people march, I think what we saw there, aside from the cases filed, aside from the Supreme Court decision, which yes, I think ended up being quite mangled as far as current process is concerned, as far as pork barrel. What we saw was three politicians named, no? So Enrile, Revilla, and Jinggoy. And I think if you look at 2019, which was the election, which was the time they sought re-election, Enrile was kicked out, Jinggoy was kicked out, Revilla hung on 11th, but that's because he was propped up by the Duterte administration, right? He was part of the admin slate. In 2022, similar thing happened to Jinggoy. He was 12. He was propped up by the Marcos Duterte unity team. So I think in 2028, if there's a clear consensus as far as being upset at corruption, then all of these, all of the factions of our politics should turn our backs on these people who may be implicated in the current flood control scandals. And I think what happens is that people will respond to that. If when people see that there are corrupt officials, they do take that into consideration. No, 4 million people changed their minds about Bong Revilla in 2019. No, he was number 1 in 2010. He was number 11 in 2019. 7 million people changed their minds about Jinggoy Estrada in 2019. And I think that's something that we want to build on. No? We want to show people that political accountability I don't want to say is just as important or more important than legal accountability, but it is a way for all Filipinos to say that we are turning our backs on these corrupt politicians.
So when you were there, did you see supporters from different political lines come together and have the same battle cry? I mean, meron din, kasi syempre online lang yung nakikita na babasa namin, no? Merong mga Duterte supporters saying there are liberals who would rather not have the current administration step down because it would pave the way for the vice president to sit as president. Pag ano yung nangyari kahapon? Nakita mo ba nagbaba ng ano, kumbaga parang ng political lines and colors itong mga taong ito or hiwalay-hiwalay pa rin yung mga protesta?
Yeah, I think as far as that's concerned, we're not there yet. No, I think a lot of there was a group that was supporting the call of Chavit Singson for like military junta. I think, which is really, I thought we had left that idea behind in the past, in the dustbin of history where it belongs. But there's still people talking about sort of destroying our democracy that way. So that's not something we agreed with. And then on the side of, there was also a group supporting President Duterte, calling on President Marcos to resign. And personally, I think it's within their right to do so. But I also think that we've experienced in our history making a corrupt president resign. And I think that's a fair thing to say. You know, President Estrada was convicted of corruption but pardoned by his successor. But it turned out his successor ends up being quite a bit worse, no, in at least in my assessment as a teenager at the time, quite a bit worse than President Estrada. No? So I think it's clear that calls for resignation don't happen in a vacuum. No? When you ask for someone to resign and you push for someone's resignation, what is the end game there? What are the follow-up steps there? And if it's just going to be a Sara Duterte that becomes president, as a result of President Marcos resigning, then we just end up with the same corruption and perhaps even more human rights abuses. No, so I think my framework is political accountability, right? I think President Marcos is clearly in charge of everything right now, and I don't think, at least for the last 3 years, he didn't do a very good job stamping down corruption. We'll see in the next few years if he's able to turn that around. But the way he's going right now, I think what will happen in 2028 is that people will realize that it was never a good idea to have a Marcos as president in the first place, and they will vote accordingly come that election. So I want to see that political accountability for the shortcomings of the Marcos administration in 2028.
Well, what do you make of the president being an anti-corruption champion? He himself has said that if he was not president, he would go down and join the protests. What do you make of that statement? And having this deep experience of your family going up against their family, anong naging reaction mo doon?
Yes, I think it's two things. No, so one is, if you're president, there's so much you can do to fight corruption, and there's so much you could have done 3 years ago to fight corruption. No? So I think it is strange to have a president na parang inggit siya sa release, parang as if mas marami yung kapangyarihan ng nagpo-protesta. Definitely, those who protest have power, and I think we demonstrated that yesterday. But the president has been vested with powers by the people in 2022. 60% of voters put him there, and to say that this is all I can do, I wish I could do more, is really, I think, not commensurate to the responsibility that was thrust on him in 2022, or that was placed on him in 2022. Nobody forced him to run naman. And then on the second level, what's really ironic is that if he said that 53 years ago, he would be arrested, right? So if he had engaged in a rally 53 years ago, he would have been arrested, right? So I think I think performative is the word that's used quite often now to describe a lot of the discourse from our political leaders as far as corruption is concerned. And I think it fits the bill pretty well for President Marcos.
So just to be clear, your group is not really asking the president or the vice president to resign. You're not calling for anybody to resign.
No, what we're calling for is political accountability, right? I think
Okay.
what we want to see is the names to come out. If it turns out that President Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte are implicated, and I think there's a PCIJ report talking about the campaign contributions of
Correct.
a number of these contractors to them. If it does turn out that they are implicated, and it seems that there's a pretty good chance that they are, then let's kick them out in 2028. Let's use the tools of our democracy to make sure as one voice as Filipinos, because that's the idea of the ballot. All of us have an equal voice. All of us have one vote. Let's kick them out with one voice as the Filipino people, and let's end this story of corruption in the Philippines.
Some incidents of violence happened over at Mendiola and the Ayala Bridge. How does Tindig Pilipinas view that? And the second is, do you know these young ones dressed in black and having a mask over their faces? Meron ba kayo idea kung sino sila?
Right. I think first of all, as Tindig, I don't think we have a stand yet because we kind of got really bugbog kami sa pagod kagabi, no? So we're just catching up on all of the news from Mendiola, from Luneta, all the other rallies that have happened. Just my quick take is I think there are two things to highlight. No, first is at least personally myself and the idea behind the Trillion Peso March is that the organizers are all committed to active nonviolence, right? So engaging in violent protests and riots, that's not something that I personally would ever do. And I would just remind people who do choose to take that route that there are consequences, to be prepared for the consequences of that route. So kung may nag-riot, lalo na kung may nanakit, dapat talagang managot yung mga gumawa nun, right? So notwithstanding that there were as you were discussing earlier, there are accusations of police brutality. I think those should also be taken very seriously because there is a right to protest, and even when there's dispersal, I think proportionate force should be used. But I think that situation will clarify itself over the coming, or will be clarified over the coming days. But I think the second point that's important to remember is that I think the anger that is the root of both the peaceful protests and the riots come from the same place. No, the riots didn't come from nowhere. The riots are in this context where we're seeing really, really bad flooding, funds diverted from social services, and juxtaposed with a lot of grotesque displays of wealth by people alleged to be involved in the issue. So that anger is the natural response to that. As far as Tindig Pilipinas is concerned, as far as the whole Trillion Peso March is concerned, we want to give a venue for people to express that anger in a way that was peaceful, in a way that is within the spirit of the 1987 Constitution. But I also recognize that while, again, none of us would ever do what happened in Mendiola, it comes from a place of, I think, justified anger. Right, so I'm
Though
not
there is
saying
some concern over the rallies being taken advantage of by other groups who have their own agenda, probably to destabilize the government and all of that. Is there concern on your part?
Definitely, at least as far as the Trillion Peso March was concerned, right? That was something we've had a lot of discussions about how to manage, right? We deployed as many marshals as we could. Although if it really was 100,000 people, I don't think we deployed enough marshals in that situation. But and we hope to improve on that in the future. But we were preparing for that situation where what if people are making calls that are very, very outside the realm of the consensus that was arrived at by the organizers. Then we were not training people, but we were tapping people who were trained to gently pacify that kind of situation before it sort of escalates into something more violent. But in terms of the thing you're asking earlier, no, do I know any of these people in masks? I don't know any personally, but I do remember detecting over the last few days, no, and this is why we were taking security very seriously. We were detecting discussions of like Molotov cocktails, wear masks, etc., etc. I wasn't sure how seriously to take it just as like an individual, but as an organizer, we did our best to
Where did you
prepare
hear
our
that?
marshals
From whom?
social media. No, I think there are a lot of posts. There were a lot of posts on the rallies happening on the 21st. Na yun, black yung suot natin, wear masks, parang obscenities,
there was a
similar to
call
what
sent
was
out.
mentioned earlier. I'm sorry.
Okay, there was a call sent out online.
I don't know if it was a call or if it's just someone trying to look maangas on social media or something. So again, I wasn't sure how to take it,
Okay.
but we were just preparing in case. For example, we put out an advisory to if we discourage people from bringing backpacks, and if they were to bring backpacks, as much as possible, have a like transparent bag so that the security would be aware of like what are the objects you're bringing into the area, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
I think we took that kind of discourse. I think we took seriously on our end to sort of prepare for anyone who might have intentions like that.
And finally, is there another rally coming up? What's next for Tindig Pilipinas?
So definitely, I know we're assessing what happened. Today. Primarily what happened on EDSA, but I think there's also discussion to be had over the broader context, and there's also going to be Senate hearings again these coming days. No, so we'd want to see what emerges from that, how to respond to that. I definitely think that I think we're committed to following up on this, but even in our absence, I think protests will probably continue to happen since the issue is far from done. But yes, definitely, I think there was a movement started or not started, but I think that sort of came out in large numbers yesterday, and I think Tindig's commitment is we want to um, I don't think we're necessarily at the head of that movement per se. I think it's much broader than just us, but we want to guide that movement towards something that where we can see like genuine consequences as far as corruption is concerned, both legally and politically, as far as elections, legally as far as cases, convictions.
Well, we will watch out for the movement that has been also started by your group, Tindig Pilipinas. In the meantime, maraming salamat for joining us today. Congratulations on a good turnout yesterday. And we hope to see that some impact on the hearings to come. We have Tindig Pilipinas co-convener Kiko Aquino D joining us on Morning Matters today.
Marami pang kailangan gawin, pero maraming salamat, Gretchen, and thank you to everyone listening today.
Stay tuned, Morning Matters. We'll be back right after a quick break. Keep it here. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Noon here at Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. The massive anti-corruption rally in Manila revealed deep divisions among protesters. Duterte's supporters, for one, held placards defending the former president, while others pressed their demand to hold the Dutertes and even the Marcoses accountable. Verbal clashes escalated at times, forcing marshals to step in to prevent physical confrontation. And joining us now to talk about his experience in the rallies, we have political strategist Alan Herman to help us unpack the divisions within the protest movement as well as their impact on the country's political landscape. Magandang umaga sa'yo. Kamusta ka? And where were you at yesterday? Which rally?
Well, definitely, I stayed on the EDSA side, Gretchen. I'm tired. Wow, this old body can only take so much walking. But Ewan ko, na-inspire kasi ako dun sa kaibigan ko yung tumakbo sa The Hague tapos hiningal-hingal eh. Sabi ko, I have to get in better shape than that lady, no? So, thankfully, I wasn't that fatigued. I got off at the Annapolis station using the MRT, and then we walked pretty much the length of EDSA until we reached the Galleria area where the EDSA shrine is. So we were able to get a good microcosm, big word, no? A good microcosm of the dynamics at play yesterday in that short stretch. I wouldn't call it a short stretch. That's maybe a 5 kilometer stretch. But very interesting and very, very fulfilling. There was nostalgia. I saw a lot of old faces, but perhaps more heartening are the new faces that I saw. Daming Gen Z. I would even venture to say that it was Gen Z led.
Yun nga yung parang gusto kong tanungin sa'yo, no, about this movement. Do you think it was more for the young ones to finally have their own version of a people power because nga yung mga kabataan tulad namin, di na naranasan niya. Diba?
Yeah.
And do you think there's something different here, like a movement building, or do you think it may be just a one-time thing? Anong naramdaman mo?
Well, let me put on my analyst hat, no? The challenges, ang tawag dyan, Homeric flaw. That which makes it challenging also gives it momentum. So, first challenge natin, di ba, pag rally or organizing a mass movement is social media. Because in the age of social media, unlike before, during my time, Gretchen, and not yours, if you had any indignation or if you were feeling rage or if you were feeling, severe anger or disappointment with the government, you had no choice. You had to go out in the streets and march. You had to join other like-minded people and gather and shout, etc., and go on a protest physically. But now in the age of social media, to scratch that itch, all you have to do is post an angry rant on Facebook, maki-share ka ng memes, make your voice known on social media. So that was one challenge. But it also makes it great because with the Gen Z leading, ang bilis nilang magpanawagan, ang bilis nilang mag-organize. They're able to mobilize in quick bursts and very thoroughly through social media. The second challenge is yung tinatawag nating protest fatigue. A lot of people are saying, they have that sensibility. Mag-marcha naman tayo, we're going to make all of this noise, we're going to go out in the streets, but nothing will really change, nothing will happen. There's that sense of almost a gloom and doom, di ba, at the end game. But the Gen Z are inflicting a new hope, or infusing rather a new hope in the dynamic.
Or bringing you energy.
They're bringing new energy. It's youthful dynamism, sabi nila. In the age of and we're seeing the age of the Pico influencers, di ba? Kasi it's great that, there are super macro influencers like Catriona Gray and the celebrities. Vice Ganda was there. A lot of these big name celebrities were there. But it's really the age of the Pico influencers of Gen Z. Yung personal communities nila, nagyayaya sila. Yung mga magulang nila, yung mga tita nila, they're trying to open their eyes politically and bringing them to the rallies. So
Pico as in personal community.
Yes. So yun, smaller than Nano pa. So we're seeing that democratization of influence, so to speak. And I saw that at play yesterday. It was really the kids creatively expressing their protest and wonderful sight to behold.
Just curious, paano mo na-identify na maraming Gen Z? Meron ba silang ginagawang kakaiba? O mukha lang talaga silang bata?
Well, number one, mukha silang bata. Number two, their signs. Di ba, I've said this a lot of times before, no? Pag ang delikado, pag politika ka, pag yung mga tao na yung gumagawa ng sarili nilang placard, if they're already taking the cartons and, tearing up the echo bags and getting their markers and making their own signs, that's when you know the indignation and the anger is genuine and real. It's not so much these really very slick commercially made placards that they're carrying anymore. Yan, yung mga gumagawa sa kartolina, sa karton. And the Gen Z are funny. I mean, a lot of the signs I saw yesterday made me laugh. Nakakatawa sila. Creative silang mag-express ng kanilang galit.
we also saw celebrities coming out to speak strongly against corruption. We had Vice Ganda, nandun din sina Angel Aquino, Jody Santa Maria, Donnie Panghilinan. How vital is the presence of these celebrities juxtaposing, I guess, with the issue of a common Filipino here? Para sa'yo, do you think all sectors were properly represented here, or meron ka pang hinahanap na hindi pa lumalabas?
Well, in terms of, well, I'll unpack that question. How vital are the big celebrities? Honestly, they're welcome. It's always nice to see the big celebrities supporting a cause like this. At least you know that, again, it gives you that reassurance that this issue transcends social classes, transcends a barrier in terms of age, gender. But right now, in terms of impact, overall impact, sabi ko nga, mas binibigyan ko ng value ngayon yung mga Pico influencers rather than the big ones. Kasi I hate to bring it up, but like we saw in the last election, all the celebrities came out in support of a particular candidate, made a dent, but not quite that dent that we were looking for, perhaps, or at least their supporters were looking for. But it's really the small communities, the smaller than Nano, what we call circles of influence talaga, na dinadala mo yung kamag-anak mo, yung kaibigan mo, you're making them aware of this issue, this very pressing issue that affects all of us.
So more of more weight on the voice of the Pico influencers. Some are worried that baka ginagaya lang natin yung mga rally sa Indonesia and Nepal. Your thoughts on that? And I mean, there are fears that this may be just a trend that we're jumping on. Are you seeing something real here happening that may exact change or impact the hearings happening over in Congress and the Senate?
Right. So first about the Nepal and Indonesia violence, I echo Kiko's sentiment about that. I'm absolutely against any such foolishness happening. Wala po tayong mapapala pag yan ang route na pinili natin. And as you can see, ayan, yung one piece flag nila, yan yung parang holdover from the other protests in other countries. I'm not sure if we're looking for an overthrow because sa totoo lang, personally, tama na yung politics of person. Tama na yung personality politics. Palitan ng sistema, hindi yung tao. I think the broader call here is to change the system, not the people. Because telling you overthrow one guy, the next guy steps in, and it's the same system, we're going to be back in the streets. You overthrow that guy, another person steps in. Unless you change and overhaul the system, it will be ad infinitum, ad nauseum, just people getting food, getting duped, getting stolen from, and then back on the streets overthrowing the next guy. So it's not so much a call to overthrow anyone. I saw a great sign brought by a Gen Z kid yesterday, and it said, "Enough is enough. Jail the corrupt." Siguro yon, mag-umpisa tayo doon.
How do you think these rallies may influence the anti-corruption or infrastructure probe? What is the window of opportunity that you're seeing here? Of course, we do know that in recent months, politicians have been more responsive to what they see online. But these protests on the ground, ano kaya yung maging epekto niya in the overall discourse and discussion?
Okay, I just realized di ko nasagot yung previous question mo pala na ano yung pinagkaiba. So let me tie that into my answer now. So first, ano yung pinagkaiba? It's the input and the needle and the needling and the trigger is recurring eh. Kasi dati when we see corruption, it's a one-time thing. We see it, we get angry. Oh, nagkaroon pala ng Napoles pork scam, yung mga pork barrel pala ninakaw, etc., etc. Ito recurring to eh. Every time it rains, every time it floods, the people are reminded. So it's that problem. And how do I think these rallies will affect politicians and investigations? I think they're going to, by now, manhid na siguro sila pag hindi nila nakita na ang tao talagang galit. Magagalit.
Kumbaga parang mas nararamdaman ng tao yung ngayon dahil merong obvious signs of how this corruption affects us directly, as opposed to Filipinos getting used to systems of corruption na sinasabi, nako, lahat naman yan, kurakot. I mean, we do know how it trickles down to
Right.
the very way the common Filipino interacts with government. Pag kumukuha ng lisensya, pag kumukuha ng permit. Ngayon, itong flood control issue, do you think it's strong enough to actually change the system?
Tactile and visceral kasi, Gretchen, binabaha yung mga komunidad, nalulubog ang mga bahay, people get sick with leptospirosis, and this is not something that will happen a couple of times a year. This will happen with regularity unless this is addressed. It will keep on triggering people's anger and triggering the outrage. So I think that's one of the things that makes this time different.
And speaking of political colors, do you foresee people from different sides coming together? And kasi sabi ni Kiko Aquino, di medyo malayo pa doon. Pero ano nakikita mo dito na pagbabago sa political landscape when it comes to the Duterte supporters, the liberals, the pinks, the yellows, and the progressives?
Well, yesterday nga, we walked EDSA, no? And there was quite a commotion near Gate 4 where Temple Drive meets EDSA. Kasi there were Duterte supporters there who tried to make it a call to oust Marcos, and there were some pro-Duterte sloganeering, so nagkaroon ng away, nagkaroon ng sigawan, later on nagkaroon ng suntukan between the camps, no? That is a challenge in terms of political divisiveness. There's really polarization. I wish in an ideal perfect world people will just focus on that, change the system, not the personality, hold people accountable, and really punish corrupt, which when I say corrupt does not necessarily point to any particular political color. But as Kiko said, and I share the sentiment, baka malayo pa tayo dyan, marami pang gagawin kasi hindi talaga ma-separate ang personal agenda ng isang political color from a mass protest such as yesterday, only because of the size and scale. You also have to remember that the size and scale of things will really, by natural law, will really just attract different political agendas into the conversation.
Pero kasi yun nga yung pinag-usapan namin din kahapon, usually mga people power movement, malinaw yan na gusto natin patalsikin itong current administration. This time around, kahit dun sa issue na kung meron ba tayong gustong patalsikin? Sinong gustong patalsikin? Pag pinatalsik ito, uupo naman yung vice presidente. Paano yun? I mean, what do you make of that confusion and all that talk? And how do you think will this influence the 2028 presidential elections?
Ako, I think the call, imbis na patalsikin, simple lang yung panawagan ko. Ikulong. Sana may makulong. Let's not even go to patalsikin kasi patalsikin political exercise yan. Let's make it an exercise of justice, of accountability. Justice and accountability ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, hindi shift of political power. Ikulong yung mga sangkot. Let's have a proper impartial, very thorough investigation and jail the people that need to be jailed, from the executive department, the legislative department, to even secretaries and line agencies that need to be held accountable. Ikulong. Moving forward in 2028, I think this is a definite inflection point to. Makikita ng tao na they will probably, I'm hoping, number one, yung mga Gen Z na sumama sa rally kahapon, sana yung kanilang order of attribute preference, hindi na dahil pogi yung kandidato, dahil magaling sumayaw, dahil magaling kumanta, or mabait, mapagbigay, matulungin. Sana they're able to shift past that and really vote on substance and vote on people who will not make a repeat. Vote people who will not repeat the same debacle that we've seen.
Well, accountability is the word for today and yesterday, and that's coming from you and Kiko Aquino D. We hope that word rings through and gets to the halls of Congress and to their ears, of course. And we do hope to exact that accountability. Maraming salamat for helping us understand the rallies yesterday. Mahaba pa yung usapin na to, no? And this will develop even further. But for now, we'll let you enjoy the post-event where you had your fish balls and ice buko and rest a bit your muscles. Maraming salamat. We have political strategist Alan Herman.
Thanks, Gretchen. Maraming salamat po sa lahat nanonood.
Meanwhile, on to another part of the Metro. We have Filipino pole vault star EJ Obiena, who thrilled home fans as he ruled the Atletang Ayala World Pole Vault Challenge that happened at the Ayala Triangle. Obiena cleared 5.8 meters on his second attempt to bag the gold via countback, edging France's representative, who needed 3 tries for the same height. Poland's Bet took bronze with 5.6 meters. Currently ranked 7th in the world, the 2-time Olympian hopes the event will inspire more Filipinos to embrace pole vaulting. That wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Noel. We are One News, all sides, all the time.